Hey everybody, how's it going out there? Well, remember the last episode when we were talking about the New Zealand tax issue? Well, it's happened again. Only I don't get a spreadsheet this time. I don't even get a chance to deal with numbers this time. What I have to deal with is something that is so on its face, just so bad, that I literally only have to read it aloud to you. And you will get a sense as to what we're dealing with here. I will give the New Zealand Taxpayer Union this. Your political lobbyists / think tanks, probably are a little more polished than some of our activists in America can be. So, because we have free speech, but doesn't necessarily mean that someone's going to make a rising ovation at any opportunity that they can. So, today we're talking about a small town school in Michigan and a concerned parent, and it's all over the news. I mean, it is so all over the news that literally the way I presented it and the way I posted it for Flair is literally, here's the event. I just had like a small little blurb of like 2 paragraphs saying this is what happened, and then literally just transcribed the speech made by the concerned mother that's been going viral about the cat pan issue, and that's what we're talking about today. And then literally had the board's response and transcribed their response below that. And basically, that's how I'm going to be treating this video today for the first part, and then I'm going to go into the funsies, and we'll just tear apart the argument like I did last time with the New Zealand thing. So let's get started, shall we? So the background, if you want, there's a written form in the description below if you want to read, go and read that instead, and make that very quick and fast. So if you have if you don't want to have your time cut into by a video, because video takes a little longer to read, listen to. Reading is faster than listening to me, I'm sure. So if you want to read it, go in the description there, and I kind of made my statement there too. So, but for those of you who are here on YouTube, let's get started. So it all started on December 20th. There was a board meeting, and parents showed up, and they were going to talk about certain topics. One particular parent basically came up on stage, and it started off, going into, the school's vaccination / testing policy for kids. And then after that first sentence, she derivated off to something else. Now, for a little background, each parent gets 3 minutes, unlike myself, who could take eternity. And I do, a lot. But each parent gets 3 minutes to state their case uninterrupted. And so, here we have the infamous kitty panned speech from the mother at the thing. So here we go.
Hi, Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas to you.
I have a speech prepared to read regarding the Test to Stay program and how unconstitutional it is. But I need to address something else. Not just to you as the board, but to parents and grandparents and taxpayers in our community. Still wrapping my brain around this a bit, but yesterday I heard something and I was stunned. And today I am equally stunned and a little bit upset. Well, not a little bit upset, but a lot of bit upset, furious. I would even use that word. I want to talk about the fact that, and I know this is going on nationwide, so it's not just for you, for this board, but our community needs to understand that the agenda that is being pushed in our schools is, just my opinion, but something nefarious when it comes to some of the activities So let's talk about the furries. I was addressed by a child a couple of months ago that they are put in an environment where there are kids that identify as furry, a cat or dog or whatever. And so yesterday I heard that at least one of our schools in our town has is in one of the unisex bathrooms a litter box for the kids that identify as cats. And I am really disturbed by that, and I will do some more investigation on that. I know it's going on nationwide. I know it is, and it is part of the agenda that's being pushed, and I don't want to understand it, but I think that people need to be aware of it, because I'm really upset as a parent that my child is put in an environment like that, and I'm all for creativity and imagination, but when somebody lives in a fantasy world and expects other people to go along with it, I have a problem with that.
As do we all, man. As do we all. So, obviously, so this speech of hers right there took about 2 minutes of the 3 minutes that she had. And so this went viral because a member of the leadership in the Michigan GOP basically shared it on her Twitter account, and that particular leader is basically the co-chair of the Michigan GOP, and so like they have a station like that, and that particular co-chair, by the way, is currently facing investigations as to some sort of elector shenanigans that she was pulling in 2020's election, right? Speaking of following fantasies. So here we have so basically after that went viral because of the co-chair of the GOP using this poor woman's rambling banter as a distraction or as some other thing from her own investigation. We had basically the chair, the actual school involved in that particular viral video had to come out and make a statement basically denying that a month later on January 20th. So this was their statement in return. January 20th, 2022. Communication regarding false accusations made at December MPS School Board of Education meeting. Good afternoon, Midland Public School staff, family, and community members. It is unconscionable that this afternoon I am sending this communication. However, our Midland PS stakeholders may be confused about a false message/accusation that has resurfaced this week and is gaining traction in the social media realm. I love it how he calls it social media realm, as if it's like that place from frickin' Mortal Kombat. Finish him. Anyways, I love that. I love that. I'm keeping it. Can I borrow it? The more social media realm. Anyways, at the December 20th Board of Education meeting, a community member addressed the Board of Education. During her comments, she stated that there were litter boxes were provided within MPS restrooms for those who identify themselves as furries. Though not all furries are cats, so I don't know what she's going off about. That wasn't his statement. Anyways, let me be clear in this communication. There is no truth whatsoever in this false statement/accusation. There have never been litter boxes within MPS schools. Oh, you don't even have a library cat? Like a real cat in your library? No, there's allergies and stuff. I know it's a liability. I'm sorry. But no library cat. Anyways, it is such a source of disappointment that I felt it necessary to communicate this message to you. In this divisive/contentious world in which we find ourselves, I ask that if you hear wild accusations that don't sound like something in which your Midland Public Schools Boards of Education Administration District would be part, take a moment to send an NPS message to me. Midland Public Schools' main emphasis was, is, and always will be to educate our community's children with excellence, integrity, and respect. And I am disappointed that you're not using Oxford commas. I know. Oxford commas is not necessarily a standard, but the sentences just feel weird without them to me. They feel naked. I'm sorry. You're teaching our kids not to use Oxford commas, and it makes me sad. I know there's prefaces. I know why I know why there's different people like the different styles. And as I said, I could do a whole video on that and nerd out about Oxford commas, but there are none here. It makes me sad. But anyways, it's not a standard. It's a source of contention, and I like being on the side of the Oxford comma. Sorry, I've chosen my path. You've chosen yours. How dare you not teach our kids the Oxford comma? Anyway, educationally yours. I like that sign off too. Michael E. Sharo, Superintendent of Schools, Midland Public Schools. So, and in essence, this is, as I said, it's pretty straightforward. Like this isn't like, on a grand scheme of things, like this is basically, I think a lot of furries have taken this as a joke, and quite honestly, I can understand. And for sure, it's silly on all counts there. I would argue here, but let's go back to the speech here for a moment. There's something very important here to discuss about giving speeches and things like that, because this is a lesson learning thing. And even if I disagree with somebody, I always think about how could this, if I were on this parent's side, what would I say about this speech that kind of made it flailing? I would argue that obviously putting the cat litter thing in your thing wasn't necessary at all. First off, because it's a lie, right? It's bearing false witness. And you're like, well, she didn't do it on purpose. It's what she heard. And it's like, but here's the thing. Like, going to a school board meeting, at least from my understanding of it, I might be wrong, is not something that it's a privilege. It's not something that a lot of people get an opportunity to do. So if you have a actual grievance with a school, right, that you should be taking those 3 minutes and making sure that they are the absolute best argument that you can possibly make. And one of the big rules in English class, in even I would say middle school English, or even like in the earlier high school English, when you start writing research papers and term papers, one of the big things that they teach is your opening statement, your opening sentence should be about what you are talking about. It should be the introduction. It should be the hook, as it were. And when you say, I'm going to talk about this, but that's not important, I need to talk about this, what that does is it minimizes the thing that you are saying in the first sentence. If in the first sentence if you just say it in the first sentence, I want to talk about child labor, right? I want to talk about child labor, but I'm going to talk about this instead. It belittles the thing that you were initially going to talk about, right? So if you go on a speech and say like, I have come here today because I think I've heard of child exploitation by chocolate companies, and I think it's very important to talk about. But I saw something really recently from Nestle, and it really concerns me. Why does the M&M lady not have high heels anymore? You know that M&M lady, she don't have no high heels no more. And that really, I think this is an agenda, and I think, so basically you're distracting yourself with nonsense filler that has nothing to do with the thing that you are concerned about. And the thing that to more people might be a little more concern, right? When you come out of the gate saying, I'm here to talk about something unconstitutional. But first, there's no but first. If you think that something, if you think that the Constitution is a vital document and a vital thing to American society, and that it's the omnibus document that's going to make sure that our government and our society keeps in check, you can't just come out of the gates and go, I want to talk about the Constitution, but first, because then you, not the leftists, you are taking the Constitution and putting it aside. You are marginalizing the unconstitutional behavior of the school to talk about some cat pan thing you heard. And not just some cat pan thing you heard, a cat pan thing you heard about yesterday that you were still investigating. Let me tell you something, what the word investigation means, right? Because I had, by the way, that word's come up again because in the last video I had to talk about what investigation means. What is investigative journalism versus what is an interview? Like, now I have to do it the other way. An investigation means that you're looking into something. If you go to a public forum and express your conclusion while saying you're investigating, you're not investigating. You are spreading your conclusion. By the way, I've made that mistake before a few times too. And guess what? Somebody called my arse out on it, and guess what? I had to go back and go, you know what? They're right? It took me a week to do it. I've made that mistake myself, but here's the thing. When you're saying you're investigating something, do your due diligence and do it, right? And don't start blabbering on to the public space about what you're investigating. Look into it. Do your due diligence. Don't just read something on the internet and then that be the crux of your investigation, because here's the problem. This is the big issue. It's like you guys keep saying, folks like you keep saying, I've done my research, and this is what I conclude from something I heard a day ago. Takes a little longer to do an investigation than that. It's not, it's not like a freaking microwave meal. You can't just put it in there, push a bunch of buttons, and then go, beep, it's done. You have to put time, effort, and you have to cook it slow, like a crock pot. That's how good investigations are done, artisanally. You understand? You can't just say that, because here are the three sentences that basically bury anything that you say in the water as ridiculous, even without the board's words, even without the board interjecting and saying this is nonsense. Okay, this never happened. You say things such as, there's one paragraph here, where you say, a child a couple of months ago told me about these furry things, right? And so yesterday, I heard that one of our schools in our town, in the unisex bathroom, of course you had to emphasize that it was the unisex bathroom because, oh no, the unisex bathrooms are the devil, like, you could have just said the bathrooms. And this is why a bunch of transfers and a bunch of people who are in the trans community are seeing this as basically what they call a Trojan horse, as it were, where you're using furries to kind of go after the thing that you really want to go after, but you don't want to go after the other thing that you really want to go after because you feel public shame for it or something. So you had to mention it was a unisex bathroom. So that way people go after the unisex bathroom because there might be a cat pan in there or something, which is just silly. Like, you're saying this on the cusp of like a constitutional crisis, and now you're talking about this and that. Anyways, what was I saying? Anyways, you're saying yesterday, right? You saw that, you heard yesterday that this was going on a school or a thing, and then basically you're saying, oh, I know it's going on nationwide. How? How from yesterday did you hear that there was a cat pan in a bathroom in your school's hometown from somebody, and then in one day's time, you know it's going on nationwide? How? You didn't even know if it was going on there. You basically say, I need to investigate, but I know, but I need to investigate. You can't have both. An investigation, by definition, is when you don't know something is true or false and you are looking into it. That is literally the definition of an investigation. And so basically you were upset because you heard some urban myth. You, instead of investigating that urban myth to see if that rage and anger was warranted, you got onto a public stage and you presented the thing that made you angry to a wide audience in attempts to make them just as angry as you are, so that you didn't feel so alone in your upset and rage. That's how this crap starts. What crap? Well, ask Tennessee, because they just banned a book on it called Moss. Mouse, M-A-U-S. And in that book, it talks about a thing called the Holocaust. And one of the big things that Hitler did was he spread the big lie. He said something so outlandish and crazy, and then basically all of his little helpers came and repeated that very same word over and over again until it was truth, right? So, ma'am, when you went up onto that stage, and all of a sudden, even though you thought this stuff was true, okay, but isn't it quite strange that all of a sudden there's all these people parroting you and giving you all good old girl gal speech, yet at the same time they are not taking the suffering for it. You are. They're spreading the big lie that you started on your platform. This is how this stuff starts. This is where those like little whispers among the German people going, "Oh, you hear about those Jewish people? They're the reason we lost World War I. Yeah. Those are the people. That's the reason." This kind of rumor mongering is what causes those things, and that should be more upsetting. This is why a lot of people are upset at your speech, is because it's the same stuff that leads to authoritarianism. It leads to people playing with your emotions. There's a popular phrase in the world called that says ignorance is bliss. That I have seen over the course of my years as an adult is the biggest fabrication and the biggest lie I've ever heard. Ignorance is whatever emotion your dear leader wants you to feel. If he wants you to grieve, you grieve. If he wants you to get angry, you get angry. If he wants you to feel complacent, you will feel complacent. That is the threat, is that this is why having education and having no ignorance is important. Knowing that investigation means that if you have a hypothesis, you keep it under your hat until that investigation is complete. Ask any police officer that has to talk to the press. We are currently investigating the situation and we'll let you know any further details. That is usually the response you're going to hear when something is breaking. And there's a reason for that. Because human beings are fragile, emotional creatures who will latch onto an emotion and let things root loose. Just as you did in behind that podium on December 20th. So these are the important things to talk about. And if there's anything that I fear about what's in schools, is that if schools produce more people that show up at school board meetings. If we can produce a society that has less of those people being produced, I think I'll sleep a lot easier at night. People who know that when you're investigating something, you investigate it. You don't bear false witness about your community, your school, and the institutions that you are allowed. You don't spread lies and fabricate things on it, because you know why? That's against one of the 10 Commandments. Bearing false witness. Not lying. Lying is different. Everyone thinks that one of the 10 Commandments is don't lie. That's not true. It's don't bear false witness. Bearing false witness is to make yourself look superior by attacking institutions or people, by spreading false rumors about them, to either bring them down or to lift yourself up sequentially. That is what is the sin. That is what one of the violations of the 10 Commandments is. If you say a little lie like, "Oh well, I don't know where my," if there's somebody who's like, "I want to see your kid," and then there's like a a terrorist taking over the plane or something. It's like, is there someone hiding back there? And it's like, no. Like, if you're doing it to protect somebody, right? That's a lie, but that's not bearing false witness. Lying to protect somebody or yourself from harm is not bearing false witness. Bearing false witness is to lie to harm, not to protect from harm. And I think that's something, and that's also why education is important, because if you read that Bible, you would know that that's the case, right? Instead of claiming to be morally superior to others because you're not as bad as what you've heard people are on the internet. And guess what? People bear false witness on the internet all the time, and you fall for it and you get angry, and then they have control over your emotions. And then when they have control over your emotions, you no longer have control over yourself. You no longer have freedom. And whether or not the government, and you're not going to care whether or not those constitutions are that, because they don't need the Constitution. They've already got you, and they're already playing you like a fiddle. So just be cautious, just be aware, and that's all I got to say about that one. I think that's basically the gist of what I wanted to say on that. And in essence, I think that in this time, what we're seeing is that furries are starting to become, more talked about in the right-wing circles, and I think the reason for that is because, they obviously they have certain issues with, certain minority folks that, we treat as peers in this community. For the most part, there are different, people of different furs who have different ideals and things like that. But I think for the most part, a lot of furries try to do their best and do their due diligence to, treat their trans brothers and sisters, and they're folks and minorities, indigenous folks, black folk. They try to treat them with as much due and respect as they deserve. And there's a lot of talented folks that were pushed aside by the mainstream of society, and furry has been a good coalition of people who are just like that, no matter their skin tone, race, color, sex, or creed. I think it's the ideal, or at least we try to push for that ideal. We falter sometimes, and some of us falter sometimes, but I think in the grand scheme of things, I think that it's something that I would hope, and I hope that someday the mainstream, if furries go mainstream, I hope that's the part that goes mainstream. Anyways, thank you very much for watching. Kick that like, kick the comment in the comment section, kick the bell, ring that bell, baby. So yeah, there was a Texas one too, but that was an offshoot of this. There was some accusation about like the Texas, they're making the tables short or something like that. And there was like some random Republican lady who was saying that down there too. But it was like, they shrunk down the table so that the furry people could eat from bowls or something. And it's like, man, you realize like the reason that tables in lunch tables in elementary schools are so short is because, I don't know if you know this, as a party of the family, children are small. Yeah, children are tiny. You didn't know that, did you? Children are little things. They can only come up to your knees, man. That's why I remember when I was a kid, like in elementary school, like the urinals were just basically on the floor. It's like the kids don't have no height, man. That awkward, and it's also that awkward time when you go to vote at the elementary school, like you go out to like do the voting thing, right, on November 4th, and sometimes they'll hold them in an elementary school, and then like it's like, oh man, I got to use the potty, and then you go in there and it's like you feel like that picture of Nick Wilde standing all over all those bunnies. It's like the sink is like down here, and I've got to like reach down to get to the sink, and it's like the handles and stuff are all the way down there, and it's like I'm freaking. You feel like like one of those, comics where you're like this big old freaking Godzilla in the thing. But no, there are no cat pans in there. Nah, no cat pans in there at all. And even if there were, dealing with unconstitutionality things, probably a little bit more. Anyways, Thank you guys very much for watching, and we'll see you then.